Hello everyone, welcome to this video on Java pattern programming. In this video, we will look at patterns which are left-based triangular patterns. Okay, some of the examples that we will look at in this video are the right-angled star pattern, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 pattern, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 pattern, and in the next video, we will take up the bottom patterns. So firstly, before we move on to pattern programming, okay, we need to understand how Java program prints. Okay, suppose I wanted this on the screen, hello. On the next line, I want welcome to, and on the third line, I want Java programming basics. Okay, a Java program can only print line by line in the sense that it can print hello, then it will print the next line, welcome to, and then it will print the third line, which is Java programming basics. It cannot jump lines or it cannot print welcome to first and then go back on top and print hello. So you have to remember this, that a Java program can only print whatever is on line 1, then move to line 2 and print whatever is on line 2 and followed by line 3. Okay. So let us look at a program which will print these 3 lines on the screen. Okay. So suppose I have a class hello world with a main method. I'm not written string args here. And it has a bunch of system.out println or print statements. Okay. So let's go line by line sequentially how this program will output these particular words on the screen. The first line says it's system.out.println hello. So what is the output that will come on the screen? It will say hello. And because it is a println, which means a line, the cursor will move to the next line and wait over there. Okay. The next statement is system.out.print welcome. So the cursor is over here and it will print welcome with a space. Okay. And there is no ln. So the cursor will wait immediately after this space. This is followed by print ln2. So print and then move to the next line, if that helps you remember it. So it is going to print the 2 where the cursor is, and then the cursor will move to the next line. Now, based on this, I hope you can get what it is going to do. This is a print. So Java comes over there, cursor stays on the same line, print again, so programming, and then cursor stays on the same line. Okay, followed by basics and cursor stays on the same line. Okay, after that, there is a system.out.println with nothing to print. So that means it will print nothing over here, and then the cursor moves to the next line. Okay, this is how print and println work. And the idea over here is for you to understand that I have to print everything on line 1 before moving on to line 2 and followed by line 3. Anytime I wanted to move to the next line, I can use an empty system.out.println, or I can use whatever message I want and then do a println. Okay, with this basics clear, let us move on to the first pattern. The first pattern is a left-based. I'm calling it left-based because it is touching the left margin. Left-based triangular pattern, which is a right-angle triangular pattern, straight up. Okay. Now, let me give you a tip on pattern programming. This is a tip, or this is how you will solve any pattern program, because there can be hundreds and hundreds of different patterns. What we need to figure out is, firstly, for this pattern, okay, how many rows are present? Decide the number of rows that I need to print. So we can clearly see that for this particular pattern, there are 4 rows, row 1, row 2, row 3, and row 4. Okay. So I decided the number of rows. Now I have to repeat something, basically repeat. Remember this, I have to repeat something 4 times over here. I'm going to print something in row 1, then print something in row 2, print something in row 3, print something in row 4. Whenever we need to repeat something, what do we use? We use loops. We do not give the same instruction again and again. We use the programming concept known as loops. So we are going to say to Java, okay, that I need to print something 4 times. So my first loop is going to be printing something starting from 1 to 4. Okay, we'll look at the code in a minute. First, we are just deciding the number of rows that we need to print. Second step is to decide the number of columns that we need to print. Okay, so if I've just put the pattern did not have this, we have just put the lines across for rows and columns. So we can see clearly that in row 1, there is only one column to be printed. Okay, row 1, we need to print one column. In row 2, we need to print two columns. Okay, I can see a pattern emerging. I can clearly now say in row 3, I have to print 3 columns, followed by row 4, where I have to print 4 columns. What are we deciding? We already decided number of rows, 4 rows. Number of columns is not fixed. What we are saying, the number of columns is dependent on the row that I am present in. In row 1, I will print 1, row 2, 2, and so on. Okay, that is the second thing that we need to decide. The third thing to be decided is what are we printing? We decided the number of rows. We decided the number of rows 1, 2, 3, 4. We decided the number of columns. Now we decide what are we printing. Okay, so what are we printing? We are printing asterisks over here, very straightforward. So we don't need to decide it. Okay, now what do we do? With this knowledge in hand, let's get to code. I'll make a new Java class, call it pattern 1. Open the code file. Fine. I erase everything over here and start class pattern 1. Fine. We make a method in here, public static void p1. We can just call it p1 for pattern 1. It does not taking any parameters of input right now. Okay, and we can do a curly. So what did we say? We need to decide first the number of rows. We are repeating something 4 times. So that is what we say, that will be a for loop. So we say int. This is the row loop. So I will call it R. My first row is row number 1. Okay. How many rows I want to print? Up to 4 rows. So I say R less than equal to 4. Each time I'm just increasing the row number by 1. So that is R plus plus. Perfect. That is my row loop. Fine. What do I need to do in this? Decide number of columns. Okay. For each row, I need to decide number of columns. And that is also, I'm printing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I'm repeating something. So I'm going to have a loop again. And now this time, this is the column loop. So I'm going to use the variable C. Again, column, I always start with the first column. I can only go left to right. My Java program cannot jump. So it is going to start left to right. So what is the first thing? It's column 1. Now, how many columns do I want to be printed? In row 1, 1 column. In row 2, 2 columns. So my number of columns is dependent on the row. So here what we write, my C should be less than or equal to R. Okay. So when R is 1, C will be from 1 to 1, which is 1 time. Right? And here I say C++, that is increase the column count by 1 every time. Perfect. What are we doing here? Decide what to print. What are we printing? We are printing in the same row. We don't want to go to the next line. I want to finish full row 1 initially. So it will be a system.out.print. And in this case, we are just printing. Okay, we are just printing the asterisk. So we just need to put this semicolon. This completes row 1. For row 1, I print whatever number of columns are required. Okay, after I finish all the columns in row 1, what do I need to do? I need to go to the next line. So always, okay, so here I'm saying move to the next row. So what do I need to do for that? System.out.println without anything. I don't want anything to be printed on the screen, but I want my cursor to move to the next line. And that is what we are doing here. And that is all there is to this particular code. So that completes the method. Then I close the class. Fine. Compile. Class is compiled. No issues. Let us just look here. Try and run this. So we're going to run P1, pattern 1. Okay. And you can see I have got the pattern. Okay. The only change, if you want the spaces, we can just put here system.out.print asterisk with a space. Fine. That was the only change needed. So if I compile and then we run it again, you can see we get the spaces. Okay, I hope that is clear. So we close this one and we go back to our next pattern. So that was the basic first pattern. Now let's try this pattern, pattern 2, which is instead of printing asterisk, it's now printing 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. First of all, recognize it's an increasing pattern, okay? The values are increasing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, the values are increasing like this. Also, if you take the line and the diagonal, the values are going on increasing, okay? What are we deciding first? Correct, absolutely correct. The number of rows. Decide how many rows. I have 4 rows because it's an increasing thing. I'll keep my row number also as increasing from 1 to 4. Second is what? What do we decide? We decide the number of columns. What are we deciding? Can we figure out like last time? In row 1, 1 column. Row 2, 2 columns. Row 3, 3 columns. And row 4, 4 columns. So again, the number of columns is dependent on the number of rows, the number of row we are in presently. Okay, if we are printing the first row, we will only print 1 column. If we are printing the second row, we will print 2 columns. Okay, so we've decided the rows, we've decided the columns. What are we deciding next? What to print. What are we printing now? Now we are not printing a fixed value here, like the asterisk. What are we printing? In row 1, we are printing 1. Okay. In row 2, we are printing 2. Okay. I can see a pattern. In row 3, I'm printing 3. And in row 4, I'm printing 4. Okay. So if all the columns, okay, if all the columns in one particular row are related, means they are the same. Okay. We print R, or we print the row number. Okay, so just check this. Check a row. Check to see all the values in this row. They are the same or they are related. So we are going to print R. Fine. So let's get coding. Let's try this out. We move this to the side. And we make a new Java class here. Or what we can do is, we can put it in the same one. Okay, and I'll just write a new method, public static void P2 standing for pattern 2. Okay, in this case, we can just try it with a parameter. I can take the number of rows that I want as an input. Okay, so whether I wanted 4 level deep or 5 level deep, I can take that as an input from the user. Fine. First is what? The first for loop in the pattern is for the number of rows. And do note, what you learn here will be very useful for you when we do two-dimensional arrays also. A two-dimensional array also, we access it in the same way. We go row-wise, and then in each row, we access the column. Perfect. So the for loop, first for loop is for the row. R is equal to 1. It's an increasing thing. I'm going from 1 to 4. So my row numbers also go from 1 to 4. This will be useful in the next video when we start doing a decrementing pattern. So R is 1. R should be less than or equal to. Now, instead of writing a fixed 4, what I'm doing is n. If the user passes 4, I go up to 4. If the user passes 10, I can go up to 10 as well. Okay, I'm increasing the row number by 1 letter at a time. Fine. What is the next thing I have to decide? Decide number of columns. How do I say? Column loop is C. C is 1. C should be less than or equal to R. Again, remember, row 1, 1 column. Row 2, 2 column. I am dependent on the row. So I'll say C less than equal to R. And I do C++. Perfect. Next thing is what? What to print? What did we say? They're all related. Check the last row. Okay. Take the bottom 2 rows. 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. It is related. So I'm going to print R. I'm printing out the columns. Okay. So I will use a print over here. Be very sure that you print. Do not use println. Okay. And I'm saying I'm going to print R and I will just add a space so that I get that space in between. So R is a variable. It will not come in quotes. Space, I need it as it is. So hence I need to put it in quotes. Fine. That's it. My inner for loop. For each row, the inner loop will run a certain number of times. What do I need to do next? move to the next row. I finished all the columns in this row. I have to just move to the next row. So that is system.out.println. Perfect. That completes my method. Class has already been completed. No, fine. And I need to complete the class. Okay, I hope that makes sense. What did we decide? First, we decided the number of rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Number of columns is dependent on the number of rows. That is why we have the C less than equal to R. What are we printing? All the columns are related. So I'm printing R. R for related, R for row number. Fine. Class has been compiled. Now, in this case, we will again run, and we are running which method? We are running the P2 method, and it is going to ask us for an input of N. Okay. So if we put 5, for example, what it will do? It will print 5 rows. So we say okay. And the output is, you can see 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. Okay. Fine. That was the second pattern in this particular video. Okay, close this one. Moving on to the third pattern, the third and the last pattern for this video. So this pattern is, again, I have instead of 1, 2, 2, I have 1, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, first step, decide number of rows, same 4 rows, increasing. Just check this, check the diagonal, check this over here somewhere. Okay, is it increasing or decreasing? So we can see it is increasing. Okay, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is an increasing pattern. Okay, so decide number of rows. Rows are from 1 to 4. Number of columns. What is it? Number of columns is very clear now by now. In row 1, 1 column. In row 2, 2 columns. Row 3, 3 columns. In row 4, 4 columns. Fine. Clear. Third thing is decide what to print. What are we printing now? In row 1, column 1, I am printing 1. Okay. In row 2, column 1, I am printing 1. Column 2, I am printing 2. You can see the connection. You can try forming the connection or the pattern in your brain. Column 1, 1. Column 2, 2. Okay, so do note what I'm printing is kind of related to the column now, not related to the row. It is related to the column. In row 3, column 1, 1, column 2, 2, column 3, 3, and so on for row 4. Okay, so if all the columns in one row, now all the columns in one row are changing. Okay, they are not related. For related, we printed R. Now they are changing. C for changing. So we are going to print C. Okay, or the column number. In this case, we are going to print the column number. Fine. So let's get coding. What we do here is we open the same program and we will add another method. The third method here, which is public static void pattern 3. Okay, we can take N, which is the size of a pattern, as an input. First is number of rows, and in this case, the number of rows, as we said, it's an increasing number of rows. Fine. So this remains the same for int R is equal to 1, R less than equal to N, whatever size we get passed, increase R by 1. Okay. Then number of columns. So for int C is equal to 1, C less than equal to R, it's dependent. Row 1, 1 column, row 2, 2 columns. So that is why C has to be connected to R. Okay, C plus plus. Then what do we say? What to print? Did we decide here? What are we printing? It's changing. Okay, it's changing in each row. It is changing. So we are printing C. And do note, it is going to be a print here. Just memorize that or figure it out that you're printing everything in one line. I'm finishing the row and hence I have to use a print. I need a space afterwards, so I would add this, okay, semicolon, and close the inner for loop. Then what do we have to do? Move to the next row, and hence I need a system.out.println. Okay, that completes my for. Okay, that should complete my method as well, and close the class. Okay, the class is closed. Perfect. Third method for the third pattern, I compile it. Class has been compiled without any issues. Now this time we run this, and now we are running P3, okay, which is asking us for an input. In this case, let me just try back with 4, okay, and we say okay, and you can see I get the pattern 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, changing things. In each row, the value is changing, and hence I'm printing C. Okay. So we have discussed 3 basic patterns in this video. Now, based on this, if you want, could you just give it a try? We discussed the first 3 patterns, okay, which is the left-based triangular patterns. The next 3, in the next video, what we are going to look at is, again, triangular patterns, but inverted triangular patterns. They are resting on the tip instead of resting on the base. These are inverted patterns. So if you want, give it a try, give it a thought, decide the number of rows, decide the number of columns, and decide what to print. Let me give you a hint that this is a decrementing pattern. The row, I want to print 3 first, then 2, then 1. Okay, so I am going to be decreasing certain values. Same here, I'm printing 3 first, then going to 2, then going to 1. So it's a decrementing loop. Give it a try, and I will see you in the next video.